Hey everyone, welcome to another edition to the Point Podcast. Everybody's doing well on this Tuesday. As always, you can follow the podcast on our social media channels, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Tuesday is normally a sneaky Pete day here on the podcast, but it's a trade deadline week, if you can believe it. Unreported story, but the NBA, I talked about yesterday. I wanted to talk about it on the podcast today. I thought I'd have time to do a solo one, by myself, but with the storm and life got in the way, working on a few things for the future of To The Point. So that kind of took that away. But I have a gentleman on the line, on the screen, that is a former hooper, he's got a great jump shot, vintage Tim Duncan-esque, same spot. And he's passionate about the game as well. So I thought it'd be great to tie it all in today, talk about all things NBA and bounce around the NBA world. But Shay, before we start, I have to ask, it was one of your favorite weekends of the year, NHL All-Star weekend. I know you and the fantasy people love this weekend. Did you catch all or if any of the festivities this weekend in Las Vegas, Nevada?
No, there's just too many that you can't catch at all. So I did, kind of go into the highlights, catch some. Caught most I would say of the skills competition and some of the other ones. But as for the All-Star game, I don't usually tune in for the whole thing. It's kind of I tease you about it, but it's kind of turns out to be a waste of time 90% of the time. But no, some entertaining stuff. See those guys float around, and it's entertaining. You guys, brought up a great point with you, Creighton and Walker, last week about the effort level and how they need to switch it up into something new. Because I think everyone's kind of getting bored of seeing the same old thing for the last few years here.
Right. To be honest with you, this is not going to surprise you. I haven't seen 1 second of one clip of the skills competition or the All-Star game, but I have to ask you because I believe I read this online, but again, I don't like to read up about the All-Star game. I just try to forget it's even alive. Did Zegras or did Petrangelo or somebody dress up as Peter LaFleur?
Yep, that's a confirmed message. Zegras, who wasn't in the All-Star game, which is the first time this has ever happened, did the skills shootout competition and dressed up as LaFleur and did the full, he took Patches O'Houlihan's thing, and put it around, and and he scored, which I think was the most impressive thing. Just to do it would have been cool on its own, but right. We had someone tie that on him, and he put in the back net. People are saying that he could see, but I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, well, that's different. I'll give him that.
I think it was I'll be honest, it was probably the coolest shootout thing that I saw since they entered the shootout, probably years and years ago.
Right. Interesting. No, I appreciate the creativity. He's a young guy too. He's younger than us. For him to pull out that deep cut of a reference.
He probably wasn't even born when that movie was made.
I appreciate that because that movie's didn't come out yesterday. So good on Trevor Zegras. I knew I loved him before. I like him even more now. But I'm sure they had a good time in Las Vegas. You can get up to some fun things, I've heard. But NBA trade deadline Thursday, you forget that the trade deadline is before the All-Star weekend in the NBA, which has always been surprising to me, Shay. This seems off because it's, just seems weird. It's a bit early in the season. I think it's something they could push back, but we've seen a number of moves, including a pair today, and I thought players had a chance to be moved. Obviously, CJ McCollum of the Portland Trailblazers has been rumored for years, really, since Portland has started to go down the wrong path. Damien Lillard is rumored to be out for the season. He gets traded to the New Orleans Pelicans for Josh Hart and basically draft capital. But with the way Portland is playing, this draft capital could be a lottery pick. Shea. I mean, they're not a good team. I mean, the other day they basically gave away Robert Covington and Norman Powell for pennies on the dollar, which I thought was a great pickup by Lawrence Frank and the Los Angeles Clippers. But what did you make of this deal and the fact that it was New Orleans who pulled the trigger?
Very strange. I know that they're protected picks, obviously, but I couldn't tell you what the conditions are. But yeah, I mean, New Orleans, I guess you're looking you're looking forward. You say, listen, I got Williamson, world-class talent when he's healthy. You've got Ingram. I think for them, it's like, okay, we have to start building the right direction because we've been, just god awful for years and years and years. But yeah, what's going back is just kind of strange that they gave up that many picks. Now, I don't know about many other like big pieces that they could have moved. Obviously, Hart is, he's maybe a starting guard, but he's nothing fancy, I guess. So I guess he's okay to lose. But the picks, it's just interesting because who knows, maybe you were going to draft a stud next year or in the first round, and now that's just that option's gone. And for Portland, you got to think, hey, McCollum's gone, Covington's gone. Well, when's Dame's time? Is it going to happen this week?
Yeah. For just talking about New Orleans here, they're currently sit 10th in the West. They are half a game up on Portland, who they just made the trade with, 4.5 back of the Lakers. So unlikely to catch them, but they would be in the playing game. So they'd have to win that game, then win against the loser of the 7 versus 8 game to get into the playoffs, which I don't see as likely. But yeah, this all really hinders on Zion Williamson because I really like Brandon Ingram. I think he's a very good player. He's a great shooter. He's vastly improved since, the Lakers basically said, yeah, we don't want you anymore, to get Anthony Davis. But if Zion doesn't come back and he's not number 1 overall pick type player, which we haven't seen, because just let's be frank here, Shea, he's overweight. It's something you don't want to talk about, but the guy's not in shape. He's over 300 plus pounds and hasn't played in over a year. With McCollum and Ingram, I mean, that's like Portland 2.0, but a worse version, because Damien Lillard, when healthy, is a top 10, creeping up towards a top 5 player in the entire NBA.
Yeah. You're thinking if he can't get it done with a Dame type player, and you're not making any progress in the playoffs, how are you going to do it with Ingram, who's half that player, and Hurt Williamson? So yeah, you're right. It does rely a ton on whether Zion's going to be the factor that he was supposed to be. And honestly, for me, Juggy, I mean, you can't change your entire game, but you can definitely change aspects. And if he is going to remain that weight, well, don't do these high flying dunks and these big blocks that are going to have you lifted up in the air and then come down with all that weight on your feet, because your legs and ankles won't be able to take that after a couple of years. And I don't even know, he probably doesn't even have 100 games under his belt.
No, he doesn't.
And he's been drafted. Yeah, and he was first OV probably 2 seasons ago.
I think this would be his third. Yeah, because Ja Morant's entering his 3rd season, and Ja is a flat out stud. The guy's an MVP candidate.
I mean, it's tough to compare apples to apples when we were, at that time, because you saw Zion, you knew the hype around him. But clearly, Ja's he surpassed him in that sense of being the player of that draft. But yeah, it's a gamble by the front office of New Orleans, but we'll see.
I mean, you look at their depth chart. Devontae Graham's the starter at point guard. You'd have McCollum, Ingram, Herbert Jones, and JV, Jonas Valanciunas. That team's not winning anything. It just, if you add Zion to that mix, I don't think him and Valanciunas can play together, because they do exactly, oddly enough, Valanciunas has a better 3-point shot than Zion. He has a better stroke. I think Valanciunas would be a great ad. We'll talk about a team that I doubt they'll trade him there, but we'll talk about a team that's close to your heart later on that I think would
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I know what you're talking
about. But this trade just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because yes, I agree with you. They're not trading the farm. Josh Hart is not a superstar player, but he is a good depth piece. He's a good bench player, but you don't want to trade away draft picks for a player that's not going to change your franchise. And I don't think CJ McCollum is going to do that for the Pelicans.
Yeah, McCollum's a little over 20-point guard that you're going to get scoring off of, but you need more than that to be a factor, I think. And McCollum's been around for a long time. He's been a great piece for Portland, and that run they made a few years ago when they took on LA, maybe was it in the conference final?
Yeah, and Golden State.
They were great. They were great then, but he was a factor then. But obviously, he can't be that 1A player. I think he needs to be even lower than that, maybe a third piece. So if you're thinking Williamson healthy, Ingram, and then McCollum, maybe you do some damage in the playoffs. But this team as a whole just has a shady streak of having a lot of raw talent. When you think about AD and not being able to function with it and not go anywhere. So yeah, some interesting moves. I think this is a kind of a Hail Mary for their front office, but we'll see. I mean, it's not going to pay off next year, it's not going to pay off this year, obviously, like you said, with the playoff and the play-in round, but maybe next year or the year after would have to be when we see if this is who won this trade fully.
Right. And maybe it's a play where they sign a player to a supermax deal. Somebody comes available and they scoop them up that they could go out and acquire. I don't know if he'd go, but I think Kyrie Irving would be a good ad for New Orleans. I wouldn't trust him because the guy is as flaky as, a guy in heroin, but he's a great player. Looking at it from Portland's point of view, they got rid of Powell, who they had signed to a 5-year contract. He's in year 1 of that. They trade him. Robert Covington, good defensive player, a smart basketball guy. But obviously it's about Damien Lillard. And he's their franchise. He's been loyal to a fault with that team, despite their shortcomings and his shortcomings in the playoffs at times as well. Do you think he's gone? I don't see a deal getting done at the deadline. I think it's too difficult to pull that off right now in teams with salary cap and everything else. But off season, do you think Damian Lillard's in a new uniform come day 1 of next season?
Yeah, that's tough, and obviously it's his choice whether he says, "Hey, I've been with you, and I want to rebuild fully," and you have your star piece around you, but I don't know. I don't know. You have to be a bottom feeder. You almost have to be a Sacramento or an Orlando to get to the bottom and build your way up from there. But I think their time has come. I think he's given that team all they can for whatever it is, the last 10 seasons. I think he does have to, search for other options. I'm thinking about places he could go. I mean, that could use that, A1 guard. I guess the first place that comes to my mind would be, maybe this is kind of off the beaten path, but maybe a Raptors team could take him on. I know that sounds strange with Freddie there, but you could play the 2 guards. They've done it before with Lowry, and Raptors aren't far off from being a competitive team in the Eastern Conference, in my opinion.
Yeah, it would be a Masai Ujiri special. I mean, they've risen to 6. They've won 8 in a row. I mean, they're playing really well. Would you include Siakam? If they said we need Siakam to have this deal done, would you trade Siakam to get Damian Lillard?
Yes, only because I trust Scotty Barnes' progression as a 3 starter and as someone who you can be relied upon on the defensive end as well, which Siakam doesn't get a lot of credit for, but he can be a good defensive player when he wants to be.
Yeah, I would as well, because like you said, Scotty Barnes continues to get better. I think OG is really good, and the Raptors are kind of a new school team where I think they could play OG at the 5, some nights. I think they like to play small, which you can get away with. And you have a guy like Lillard and Fred who both shoot close to 40% from three or above. So that would be a deadly combination. And Scotty Barnes wouldn't have to rely as much on his 3-point shot. He could be the killer from, he could be the Kawhi, where he's inside the paint just doing work, pulling up from 22 feet.
Yep. Elbow twos.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I love that one.
What about you? If you had a destination for game time, where's somewhere you think he could be moved to easily?
I don't know if this is easy, but it's low-hanging fruit, so I'll take a bite of the apple. I think Philly would be interesting. Joel Embiid is a monster. I think the guy is the MVP of the league so far. I watched a lot of the game on Sunday between the Bulls and the Sixers, which was a fantastic contest. DeMar DeRozan and Embiid went toe to toe, but Embiid all year he's been so great. And no Ben Simmons, which he loves, because Ben Simmons is off, getting his head checked, faking having mental illnesses, which is his prerogative. But get well soon, Ben. While you collect $27 million. But you could trade Ben to Portland, which Ben isn't a bad building block to start your team with. I mean, Portland's going to want to rebuild. But even if, say, they traded, they got Lillard, got Simmons in the deal. Well, you could flip him again. I mean, you don't have to keep him if you don't want to. Again, it's another piece that you could add more draft capital. You could go the Oklahoma City route, where they love collecting draft picks. We'll see if it plays out for them. But I think Philly would work because you have a point guard for point guard type switch. And I think Lillard would gel a lot better with Embiid than Simmons ever has.
That'd be a deep guard combination with Lillard. You got Seth Curry there, Maxey's there, Shake Milton's there. They would have a very handsome, guys just coming off the bench and be able to shoot. Because one thing, a lot of that, especially that guard combination of Maxey and Curry, they just shoot really well. So if you add Lillard to that, I mean, you're spreading all around the 3-point line, and you just create a ton of space, I think, by having those dangerous guys on the edge.
Yeah, if I'm Portland, I want Thibault in the trade. I
really absolutely.
Like that young man can hoop, and he's a really good defender. And I want no part of Tobias Harris's contract, so I would let that one right off the bat. I'm not taking this quicksand contract from you, but that one comes to mind for Damian Lillard. But I like your Toronto proposition. That's really interesting. I mean, there's always, I'm sure we'll hear these two teams during the offseason from Woj and other insiders. The Knicks, because why not?
Oh, yeah.
Of course, the Knicks. Yeah, maybe he'll go to the Knicks. Who are they going to trade? Julius Randle? And then it's always the Lakers. Oh, the Lakers, well, they got no cap room, but that'll still be floated. It'll be top of the – they taking Russell Westbrook back. Like the G League isn't taking Russell Westbrook back in a trade right now. But it wouldn't shock – I mean, Masai Ujiri's MO is to go get a player like Damian Lillard. He did it with Kawhi. And I think with Damian Lillard, he wouldn't be one of these guys that say no to Toronto, because he's been in Portland. Portland is basically Toronto minus the customs, in the airport. They're a small market, but unlike Portland, the Raptors have some cred. They've won a championship in the modern era, and they still have a lot of the same guys there that won the title back in 2019.
Yeah. They have a pretty, well, I'd say maybe not this season, but historically Raptors turnover is not that bad. They tend to keep guys for 2-3 years if they like them, especially Masai will keep guys longer than that if they think they deserve it. So, and you compare Portland, it seems like every year, take Powell for an example. Yeah, we're going to sign you to 5 years. Okay, well, next year, see you later. So that turnover might be attractive too, more of a a better chemistry in the locker room, we'll call it, for the Six.
We'll get to Sacramento of it all in a minute because they're not normally in the news because they are
usually for the wrong reasons. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about them in a minute. Obviously, Brooklyn is in the news. They've lost 8 in a row. They are in a bottomless. They scored 29 points in the second half on Sunday. That's hard to do. I think me and you could put up 20. You put up 20, I could get bored in there maybe. I've got a lot of height, but I'd push a guy. I'd take his legs out, something, injury, something. But I get a board. But 29 points in 24 minutes. That's hard to be that bad in the NBA. You're playing Denver, not exactly lockdown defense. But Shay, James Harden is hurt. He's going to be out again tonight against your Celtics. So that might actually be bad news for your Celtics because it seems they play better when he's not in the lineup. But is it just me, or does he just seem like he is in Houston when he got traded, where he's really out of shape and he just doesn't seem to care when he's playing? He's going through the motions. He's lazy on defense. And I don't know if he's tired of the antics with Kyrie Irving, which I get, but he just looks like he wants to get the hell out of Brooklyn.
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be hard on you after doing that for so long. Music playing out of nowhere. I think you're right. I think you putting up with that for that long, like you got a perfectly capable guy who, God forbid, just needs a vaccination and maybe a therapist. And he's a quality guard. And you got someone, you've got the best with Kyrie Irving and James Harden. You've got the best backcourt I've ever seen, maybe ever. Two guys who have the best handles, two top 5 guys for handles in the league. They both shoot amazing. They're both decent passers, but you're right. Just a head case, and they can't put egos aside, which seems to be it. So, and you made a great point. This team sucks at defense. And you knock out KD, which we were texting about a few weeks ago, what the team was going to be like without him. Well, that offense is gone, and now they have nothing. You know what I mean? Like when you take one scorer out of a team like that, you're basically relying on everyone else to pick up the slack. And KD's a massive hole on that team. And the record reflects it. And I don't know, for Harden, the effort just isn't there this season. Yeah, his numbers look great. He's averaging probably 23 points, whatever it is, 10, 11 assists. But not the James Harden we saw in Houston that was MVP caliber for sure.
Right. And I mean, you saw it firsthand, you being a Celtics fan. You got rid of Kyrie, you had a better record. You got farther in the playoffs when Kyrie was gone. And he only plays road games. Let's just have a bigger conversation here, Shay. Like you're on the team. You play every day, you go to practice, you're working your ass off, and you're with me. And I show up and I only play on the road. How would you feel about that? Like, no matter, I might be uber talented. Let's not put me in the conversation. Let's say anybody else when it comes to basketball, because I sucked. But, you have a player that is uber talented, is great, but he only plays half the games. He's not putting in as much effort per se as you are. How would that sit with you as a teammate?
You got one thing wrong there. You're a pretty good 21 player. Maybe not game style, but 21.
Okay. Yeah,
you could have rebound.
Yeah, I found a way
but incredibly frustrating. I mean, you got to think that it would just weigh on you every night, especially, you're sitting there down 20 thinking, well, there's my 20 points is sitting there on the bench, right, scrolling through social media. Like, you really do got to think that it wears on you, and not just James Harden, obviously the team, the staff, faculty, even the owners got to be thinking, what the hell is this guy thinking, that we brought this guy in to win a championship, and now we're here sitting here paying half the salary for him to sit on the bench when he doesn't have to. But yeah, no, that's my 2 cents into it. And then as for James, you're thinking, you tried this out. maybe this isn't the best fit. Maybe you need to go somewhere where you are that number one guy. And that's a whole other podcast we can get to. Where the hell does James Harden go from Brooklyn in this experiment?
Thursday's the deadline. If you're Sean Marks in Brooklyn, would you trade Harden for Simmons straight up?
No, because I think Simmons would probably just make that locker room worse. But if you're thinking, James Harden and Ben Simmons and picks, maybe you're thinking, okay, this isn't our year. Even if KD comes back, we're still not going to do what we thought we could do with Kyrie being Kyrie and, all the other factors. If you were saying, okay, we'll take Simmons, maybe a first, second, and the guy you mentioned earlier, Thibault, I would take that deal. I wouldn't have a problem with it. And you're Philly, you're just licking your lips at getting a guy like Harden who completely changes your team. I mean, yeah, you're pretty structurally great defensively, but now you have some guy offensively that could run the show and, pick and roll with Embiid. I mean, that combination is just unreasonable.
Yeah. It's interesting on both sides because I think Simmons would do really well with Irving and Kevin Durant because he could be a power forward playing point guard. He could do what he couldn't do with Embiid because Embiid lived in the paint. He doesn't have to shoot really. Maybe he's improved his shot. I hope he's worked on his free throws through all his mental break here because some of the free throw shooting in the NBA is beyond pathetic. I mean, that could be a whole
this year, especially. Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, that's
pretty
what you do for a living. I mean, come on. But he could live in the paint. He's big enough to be almost a center in the NBA. When he's built, he's always in shape. That's one thing I'll give him credit for. When he comes back, I expect him to be in tip-top shape, but
imagine if he wasn't. Imagine he came back and he was overweight and he was just like a god awful. And so some team thought he was getting the old Ben Simmons.
We got James Harden, but he can't shoot.
Essentially. My only critique on that is I don't know if Simmons would be fine not handling the ball as much. Right. Because you'd have to sacrifice, Durant gets his touches, Kyrie's going to get his touches. But if you're fine being that guy who can distribute in the paint and, be a big body, I think that would work really well. I just don't know if Simmons would be able to give up that much ball time, I guess.
Yeah, he'd have to check his ego a bit, but maybe him not having the ball as much would be something that would be good because he kind of panics in the big.
Yeah, true.
But if he could get the ball to KD for corner, just give him the ball to shoot. I mean, Kevin Durant's the most effective shooter in the NBA. I think it's an interesting proposition. Because otherwise, I don't think Brooklyn's going to trade James Harden before the deadline because it's going to be very difficult to make that happen with salaries. You're going to have to match it. And I don't see, Portland's not making that deal for Damien. They're not taking James Harden. I mean, it's more likely that Simmons will get traded to Portland for Damien Lillard, but Lillard's injured at this point, so he might even miss the rest of the season. So I wouldn't rule out the Harden deal. I do think it's a long shot at this point, but I think Brooklyn looks at this and says they're still in their championship window. I mean, not winning this year would be such a big disappointment for this nucleus of this team.
Yeah, a lot of raw talent and just, it seems like it's all falling apart. Maybe it's a little too early to critique and say the season's a write-off, but if they keep playing like this and can't get production from guys, like Harris and whoever else they have, Kyrie, when he's playing away, then, yeah, I mean, this season's kind of going down the drain for them for sure.
And they play, your Celtics have the same record. You got your tie. You two play each other tonight. Brooklyn is in, and the game might be in Brooklyn, so there's no Kyrie Irving tonight.
No threats,
and there's no James Harden. So I like to good odds for your Celtics to get a win tonight. Anyway, Shed, that's positive news.
The unfortunate thing is, if there was a game if they could win and they would lose, it'd be tonight, because whenever they're supposed to win, it seems like they end up taking the L.
Right. Let's get to your Celtics.
Okay.
8th in the East, tied for 7th, half game behind the Raptors, who are red hot right now. But it's been, I don't know if it's been, I think it's disappointing, but not, I think me and you both had realistic expectations about these Celtics. I didn't expect them to be very good. I think you had similar thoughts. But I expressed this probably a few weeks ago. And I said that the nucleus of your team with Jason Tatum and with Jaylen Brown, they reminded me of the 2011-2012 Oklahoma City Thunder, where it was Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant. And they go down the floor, and one time it would be Jason Tatum's turn to shoot. Next time up, Jaylen Brown gets the ball. You know he's not going to pass it. He's going to shoot the ball again, and it just goes like, it's not good team-oriented basketball. And I'm wondering if you've seen similar things this year where it's a two-man show and there's five men on the court.
Yeah, well, the complaint did come up. Obviously, Marcus Smart made a comment saying, you know, our two guys don't pass the ball. And I have noticed it more after that comment, thinking, okay, like there's times where Jaylen Brown, he's got an easy pass in the paint. Instead, he kind of bums up a half-assed shot. But yeah, no, I think maybe adding a better ball handler in there. I'm not sure what they could do. Dennis Schroeder, I mean, he's okay, but I don't think he's the answer to that problem. But yeah, no, there's times where it really just seems like a two-man show, and everyone else just kind of has to comply because they're supposed to be the stars.
Yeah, is Jason Tatum a good enough player to be a number one player on a championship team, in your opinion?
We've had this conversation. I think he is a really, really talented player. I think he can be an elite scoring threat when he wants to be. He's underrated rebounder, which not many people give him that much credit for. But yeah, I don't know. I think when it comes to that clutch moment, and you know, especially coming to the playoffs, he doesn't always show up. So I think no, I think you got to have somebody else in there to kind of be that to be the guy, I guess, and then Tatum could be an elite number two, which you know that'd be a stretch. It'd almost be like having two number ones in it. But in order to win, I think that's what you need to have them. And as for who that would be, I don't know. At this point, I'm not sure. So some people float out Simmons, but I don't think Simmons.
In Boston?
Yeah, that was a rumor a long time ago, and when that was floating around when things were not looking too hot.
It wouldn't be good because I mean Philly's a tough crowd, but it would be okay. I know he might be half black, so that'd be tough for him in Boston.
Yeah, he is.
I made a racial joke there because it's known as one of the more racist cities in America. But that was brought up the other day on a podcast I listened to, which was kind of alarming. But yeah, I mean, I think of the bottom feeder team. I agree with you about the point guard angle because I don't like Tatum bringing the ball up the floor every time. Number one, it's taxing because he has to do a lot, but also he's not a great passer. So, you know, he's an okay passer, but would the Spurs trade DeJounte Murray? I doubt it. He's a really good player. I like him.
They'd want a lot.
Yeah, they'd want a lot. You're basically trading for, you know, like a guy they had last year, Evan Fournier, and that's not what you're looking. Evan Fournier is a two guard. He's not a ball handler. I mean, there's very few pure point guards left, Shay. I mean, Chris Paul is a rare breed. I mean, there's a reason why Phoenix has the best record in the NBA, and I think a lot of it has to do with Chris Paul. But, you know, is Utah going to trade Mike Conley? Well, unlikely. They're in a playoff position. You know, you could go down the list.
What about Malcolm Brogdon from Indiana? Would he be someone you would think that would mesh well with that team? Since Indiana seems to be shipping everybody.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. He would be a great ad. He's a really good player. What it would take to get him is obviously the big question. Because just speaking as a Celtics fan, say you could get Malcolm Brogdon, who would you be willing to part with? As players on the roster, obviously, I think they'll want picks because Indiana is loading up with their full tank rebuild here. What players on the roster are you willing to part with for a guy like Malcolm Brogdon?
So tough. In order to get him, I think I would be able to give up. I wouldn't give up Brown or Tatum. I would be able to give up like a Smart. It'd be tough if we could replace him, maybe even Robert Williams, which sucks because he's become kind of the guy they've tried to push to be their number one center. But if that's what it took, I could see him, because Malcolm's both dangerous offensively, but he's also got the defense to mesh with this team. As of late, they've been better defensively, but
yes,
yeah, I don't know. Smart, God love him to death. As a Celtics fan, you love Marcus Smart for what he does, but if he's the 2019 DeMar DeRozan, the sacrificial lamb, I'd be willing to get rid of him.
Yeah, I could see that happening, because I like him too, but he has a ceiling. You know what it is. I don't see him having even the upside of a DeMar, who's been fantastic in Chicago this year. But yeah, I think it'd be tough. I think your Celtics need to move up in the standings, because you have to make a trade that's going to have a big impact. Because if they say the Heat finish first, they're not beating the Heat in a 7-game series.
No.
I just don't see it. I love the Heat roster. I don't think they're beating Milwaukee at the way the two teams are put together right now. I don't think they have a 0% chance of beating Chicago. I like Chicago, but they've never been in the postseason. So, they have little, oddly enough, Shay, this team would scare the hell out of me in the East. And it's because they're young and they don't know any better. And that would be the Cleveland Cavaliers. Young teams that have nothing to lose and everything to gain scare the hell out of me. Look at the Cincinnati Bengals. They had no expectations. They're in the damn Super Bowl. Cleveland is just like, well, we got youngsters. Okay, Ricky Rubio tears an ACL. Okay, we'll go get Karis LeVert, who's better than Ricky Rubio.
Oh, big time.
Darius Garland is a stud player. Jared Allen, Brooklyn would kill 6 fans to get Jared Allen back. The guy is balling out. How did he not make the All-Star team? I'll add. But I don't think your Celtics could beat them, quite frankly. I think that'd be a tough matchup. I think it's going to be tough. I think they need to get up to that 6-5 seed, and then I give them a chance to win a round and then get in the second round. Then who knows what happens? Maybe there's injuries, maybe things fall on their way.
Yeah, playoff matchup I'd love to see, calling it now, Cleveland versus Brooklyn, and it's the Jared Allen show, taking down his old team and giving
and LeVert.
Yeah, and LeVert too. They gave up on him when they get on these superstars, so it'd be a great matchup. But yeah, to your point, Cleveland, they're just a wall of defense with those 3 giants there. So I don't think the Celtics could take them on, because
they're so big.
They would get shut down, basically. They rely on 2 guys to run most of their offense, and if those 2 guys can't do it, then they're a shell of the team they can be. So I think Cleveland, just to piggyback off you, unbelievable team. And it's been their drafting the last 5 years have just got them to this point where they finally can get into the playoffs without having 23 James in there, which is, to me, is the most impressive thing. Finally coming out of that shell and breaking the curse.
Yeah, absolutely. Some breaking news here as we're talking basketball. Bradley Beal, season-ending shoulder surgery. He's out for the season for the Wizards. That likely means they will not be making the playoffs. They're in the 11th seed, a game out of 10th behind the Atlanta Hawks. I think it was interesting because they had such a great start and they fell off. I think Kuzma is having a good season for the Wizards. I think he's played extremely well since getting traded there. They've had some good performances from players. Could you see a Kuzma getting moved in the trade deadline period?
If they thought they could repeat what they did last year, for sure. Yeah, they could get rid of Kuzma. If they thought that he was a building piece for the future, I could see them also keeping him. But
right,
he's a guy that could mesh if I'm thinking of Denver right now. Denver doesn't get Michael Porter Jr. back. He could fill in that position where he's a scorer. He's a long, he can shoot three.
I have another one for you too. Right behind them, Utah. They lost Joey to torn ACL. He'd be a good fit there.
Yeah, we're a good replacement for him as well. Yeah, absolutely. Spencer Dinwiddie too plays in Washington. He wouldn't be a bad move if they didn't think they were going to go. Where could a guard like that be kind of fit in at this late in the season?
What about the Raptors?
For Dinwiddie?
Yeah, I think the Raptors need guard help because they play, on average, their starters play 43 minutes a game. You can't play that
too much. Yeah,
they're going to be worn out. And Dinwiddie, he's kind of like Sean Livingston, Shay, for the Warriors. You know what he's going to do. He's a good passer. He's smart. He's a veteran. He's going to make the right play more often than not. And I think Nick Nurse would trust him to give him 12 to 15 minutes a game. He's going to play those minutes well and give the guard some rest, because the Raptors haven't been playing Malachi Flynn. They haven't been playing Delano Banton very much. I think Livingston and obviously Goran Dragic has been MIA since November. So maybe Dragic is put in that deal, and then Washington could waive him or flip him elsewhere as well. That could be a little carrot for them to deal Livingston.
Yeah, no, I could see something like that. That'd be, a good move on the Raptors if they were thinking about, even just being competitive for the year, for sure. Maybe throwing like a Montrezl Harrell too.
Right.
Help them out down low. They seem, Bouchard is good, but I don't think Bouchard is quite going to be a force yet down low for them. So yeah, it could work.
Honestly, this is rare, but I find the NBA, the stretch, the last half of this regular season is going to be more compelling than the NHL. And the reason I say that, Chase, because the East is basically locked up in the NHL. The 8 teams are going to make the playoffs unless Hurricane Katrina rolls through. NBA, there's a play-in, which I didn't love at first, but I like it more now because more teams stay in it. You could still make the playoff. I like that more, where, I think Atlanta, they've had a poor season, but I want to see them if they can catch that fire again. Maybe they're a play-in team. They make a run, Trae Young and those cast of characters. Out West, Minnesota, the Timberwolves. I like that team. They're a team that plays hard. They're in the 7th seed. Maybe if they go up against imagine they beat the Lakers in a playing game, that would be something else. So I think the races are going to be more compelling for the NBA down the stretch here than the National Hockey League.
Oh, absolutely. It's so tight, I find, this year compared to other years. It's like no one's really taking that leap. In the West, you got Suns and Warriors who are kind of just ahead of everybody substantially. But then other than that, it can be a kind of a dog race, especially these teams going from, you look at the Mavericks, 31 wins, Nuggets, 29, 28 wins for Timberwolves, 27, 26. Any of those teams can kind of get hot and jump up in the standings pretty quickly, especially if the Lakers can figure out what the hell's going wrong there. Besides aging stars. But you're right, the playing keeps it competitive. These teams that otherwise would say, okay, well, we're at the 12. Well, no reason to keep going now. Our season's done. Well, we can at least earn some more money if that's it. If it's that one more playoff game, or keep the fans entertained for that much longer, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Keep people in the stands. Small markets, they don't show up if you're not winning. And let's talk about, you talk about small market, you talk about irrelevancy. Sacramento Kings are maybe the most irrelevant franchise in pro sports. I think there's people in Sacramento that don't know that they have a team in Sacramento. And I'm not trying to be mean here. I think Sacramento's not talked about much, but they made a move today, which completely stunned me. When I saw it, I said Pacers trade, and I didn't think they'd move this player. I was surprised to see him moved. Then I saw where he was going, and I was even more surprised. So today, the Indiana Pacers traded two-time All-Star Domantas Sabonis to Sacramento for Tyrese Halliburton, player I like, first-round pick, Buddy Hield, and your boy, Tristan Thompson. And the Kings will get Justin Holiday and Jeremy Lamb as well. Sabonis is he's a double player, 19 points.
Oh, he's a talent.
And he's damn talented. He's probably not as good as his daddy was, but he's a good player. And what's happening in Sacramento? Why are they making this move right now, Shay? This completely stunned me.
The only thing looking at their standings spot, the only thing I can think of is they're trying their best to keep De'Aaron Fox in Sacramento because, reports have said that he's not happy for obvious reasons, like most Kings players after their first 5 seasons. So trying to keep him there and trying to become competitive seems like it. They do have some good young talent in Sacramento, I'm not going to lie, but winning has always just been it's just been a back burner to actually, like you said, keeping fans in the stands. They're going to have to call Jackie Moon to get things rolling there with some interesting halftime performances.
Right.
But no, it's a huge move. I've keep seeing reports the Kings lost this trade. How do you feel about it at this very point in time?
I like Sabonis a lot. However, I really like Halliburton as well. So I would say, I think this is an interesting position because I think this Sacramento could be what Chicago did last year. Chicago went and got Vucevic at the trade deadline. Yeah. And I said, I like this. I remember saying at the time, I said, they're probably not going to make the playoffs, but they're building something. They're putting building blocks in place for, future success. They get DeRozan, Levine comes back healthy. They sign Lonzo Ball. All great moves so far, and I think they're second in the East right now. So check. For Sacramento, like you said, De'Aaron Fox, love him as a player. I think he's great. I love the way he plays. I would have liked to have Halliburton because I think he's a really good player. But I think I gotta give it to. I don't mind it for Indiana because they are in a full rebuild, but Buddy Hield is a streaky shooter. I think they'll cut him or move. I don't think he'll be there at the end of the year. They also got who'd they get? Justin Holiday. Okay, the Kings got Justin Holiday. Tristan Thompson. That's a buyout waiting to happen. I still give it to Sacramento because you sold me on. They're at least trying to be competitive. And as I look at, they're only, let's look here, a game and a half out of 10th. That's the playing game. They haven't made the playoffs in 15 years. So 2 teams that are just fighting for the right to get into a playing game made the biggest moves of the trade deadline so far. Yeah. And maybe this is Sacramento saying, looking at it saying, okay, San Antonio's ahead of us. We think we're better. We want to be better than them. Portland, they stink now. We'll be better than them. We got to get past New Orleans. We're not going to catch the Lakers, but we want to put ourselves in a position where we can be the 10 seed and we can play the 9 seed in a game to see if we can go further in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I agree. And for a business standpoint, you got to get like we said earlier, you got to put people in the stands, and if you keep losing and not adding that that spark, that interest, okay, well, we got this that's 2-time All-Star, this world-class player. Well, that's going to make me go down to watch Sacramento games. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even if it's just to see the hype, regardless of the scoreboard, it's like, okay, well, what's this guy going to do for us?
Try to get a game on TNT or ESPN.
Yeah, like it's about getting, even if you have like a few stars on your team. Well, you see the Lakers, they stink, but they'll still get games because they got like LeBron and they've got a bunch of old vets.
Yeah. You look at Sacramento, De'Aaron Fox, Davion Mitchell, who's a national player from Baylor, good player. Harrison Barnes is a good player. He gets, I think, picked on a lot because in Golden State, he was moved for Kevin Durant, which isn't his fault. He won a title before Kevin Durant showed up. Sabonis, not bad. And Raquan Holmes. They could obviously improve that, but they got Bagley. They have Mo Harkless. They have players. for sure.
Guys that can move too, right, Juggy? Like guys that are, if it comes down to it and they need that, and maybe another piece, maybe a Bobby Portis, we'll say, if we're looking at Milwaukee, like you can not Bobby Portis himself, but like that piece, like that glue guy, that guy that's going to make your team. They have the capabilities to make that move. You know what I mean? So that they basically kept their options open. So yeah, you get rid of Hield. His time came. He was with Sacramento for a while. He was an okay shooter, but he wasn't going to cap. Like he wasn't even starting for most of last season and this season. So he was about his time was come, and in all like understanding, they still got a second round pick for him, which isn't much, but that just shows that they kind of had to sweeten it off with something, which I guess shows how much Indiana liked Halliburton, really.
Yeah, they must think he can be their future at point guard, because they don't got a whole lot in Indiana. It's pretty thin. When it comes to their prospects and their future. But yeah, credit to Sacramento. That's my 2 cents here is don't just accept your fate, try to fight for it. I look at a San Antonio, maybe they don't believe they're going to make the playoffs. Could you get a Jakob Poeltl to Sacramento?
Oh yeah.
He's a player I like. He's gotten a lot better.
From his Toronto days, for sure.
From his Toronto days, he's really gotten a lot. He's improved year over year. Unlikely now that New Orleans will trade JV. I can't see them trading Valanciunas now that they've made this move for CJ McCollum. We'll go back to your Celtics for a minute. Do you think they need a big, or are you okay with Robert Williams for the rest of the year?
No, I think they need a big. Whether it's, Tatum can play the 4, but I would rather have, a legitimate center, which are hard to come by. Yeah. If I'm looking at the bottom tier teams now, you're really slim pickings for a lot of these teams when it comes to like just legit centers and good big men. Maybe you squeak in a Montrezl Harrell if you were trying to just help out with that. But yeah, I don't know at this point if there's anyone big. Like you said, Portal would not be a bad ad either. He'd be a guy I'd like to see just kind of help out Robert Williams.
What about Nurkic?
Yeah, he's a guy I didn't even really put 2 cents into, but he's if Blazers are going the way they're going. What's that?
He'll probably get injured after the first game, but you could.
Well, that's the thing. Nurkic he's definitely not a top 10 centerman, but he is a starting center for sure, and he would be able to do some damage. But yeah, just health reasons, I don't know if he'd be the best guy. And what they'd have to give up for him, maybe they sent back. Maybe you're sending back Robert Williams. Maybe they want more than Robert Williams for him. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Interesting for the Celtics if they do anything over the next couple of days.
I as a fan, Juggy, I want them to see them do something to say, okay, even though we're heading the right direction, we're kind of snowballing the right way. I would still want them.
I think the Celtics and Raptors are in unison in that front. Like I think both fan bases say, I want you to. We feel like we've earned it, that we deserve to do something proactive.
Yeah, I feel the same way. If I was a Raptor fan looking at my bench saying, okay, we're pretty thin down there, even the smallest ad would be like, okay, well, we see that you're trying to get us in the right direction. But yeah, that's just how I feel. Whether it was a big man to help out behind Williams and Horford, or even just a better ball handler. I know they do have that length, and they're, Langford and Peyton Pritchard, but I'd still want to see someone with maybe a little bit more experience. Love what Cleveland did. I know you mentioned it a few podcasts ago, pick up a Rondo. He's a veteran player, plays well in the playoffs, and he's coming off the bench, but he's got a ring and he knows what it takes, to get you to the top. He's got multiple rings, I guess.
Yeah. Everybody knows their role on the team, which I think is so important. I'll bring into this bigger question. As we sit here today, who's the best team in the NBA?
I'm going to go with after watching them play, they're round. I have to say Phoenix.
Yeah.
I love the way they play. They just, I don't know what is about them, but like they just have it. And going back to knowing your role, that's what everyone on that team does. You know what I mean? Booker is not trying to make the unintentional, like he lets Chris Paul run the plays, runs the floor, let him be a floor general. And he's fine with catch and shoots. And, sometimes he has to create his own shots. And everyone else around there knows their role too, whether, it's Bridges kind of doing things. Bridges is not striving to be a 25-point guy. He knows he's going to chip in 10, 15 points a night, but he's going to be solid doing it and solid playing defense. So, yeah, that's my opinion, because they just have so many things well. And to see them make a scary move, like to grab somebody who they think could get them over their hump, because they were right there last year. They just didn't have it.
Right. Yeah. I think they would have won the title if they just built a wall in front of Jan, and they didn't do it. They played maybe Ayton one-on-one, which wasn't fair to him, because Giannis is a freak, literally and figuratively. I'm going to go with Phoenix too, because I like your point. And one thing I think they did is they added depth, and you didn't really even know they did it. They signed Bismack Biyombo to a 10-day contract. The guy's off the street and he's playing phenomenal. He comes in. They got JaVale, my guy. I love JaVale McGee. He's past his Wizards days. This guy's a champion now. This guy knows what it takes to win on a team like that. He plays his role. Bismack does. Ayton, like you said, Bridges locks people up. He guards Steph Curry. And will Steph Curry torch him every now and then? Of course, because it's Steph freaking Curry. But if he could shut him down 2 games in a series, and you have 2 really good games from Booker, I like the chances of that team. And they're one team that I don't think has to make any major moves, because I think they have such a good team. If there's something there, of course, to explore it. But Paul, Booker, Bridges, Ayton, Jay Crowder, Cam Johnson, Cam Payne, JaVale McGee, they're 10, 11 deep. And you feel pretty comfortable playing all those guys on the roster. Big Frank back there.
Yeah, is he playing there? I didn't even realize.
He's on the roster. Much, but he's on the bench.
Oh, the old 2 minutes. Hey, we're winning by 30. Get out there. Jack up a 3. Good college player though.
Wisconsin's finest.
Yeah. He's in the Raptors.
Final Four, player at Wisconsin. Big Ten Player of the Year. College basketball Player of the Year. Big Frank Kaminsky. Golden State. Are they number 2 for you?
No. I think Golden State's really good. This is off the wall, and you're thinking, well, the standings, that doesn't make much sense. Team I really like is a team you mentioned before, Utah. I really, really like Utah. I think they've had some up and downs this season, but I still think the foundation is strong. And I think they've got it burning. They said they've got a team that can win now, and they just need the right moves. They've got veterans they've added to the bench this season, Rudy Gay being one, who I think is great. Just kind of, if he gets his 10-15, he does his thing. I really like Utah. They'd be hard. I call crazy. I call them my second best team in the league.
Yeah, call me crazy too, because I had them winning the title before the year. It's not looking great at this moment.
Well, they're 4th right now, and you're thinking, okay, they match up well with the Dallas. There's 2 defensive teams.
I like them winning that series. Yeah.
And then
I give them a fighting chance against Denver for sure.
Absolutely.
Jokic is a freak, but yeah, I think Golden State's really good. They're deep as well with Poole and Gary Payton II, and Clay had a great game. It was good to see him really get back and start playing phenomenal. They got Milwaukee this week, which should be a fun game. That'll be Thursday night on TNT. So looking forward to that matchup. Memphis is very good. We talked about a team earlier. I think the Sixers are really good, but I'm going to go with the Heat, because again, they're so deep. Jimmy Butler, I love his competitive edge. Tyler, my hero, Tyler Hero. Duncan Robinson, they got those 2 white skinny guys that can shoot threes like no other. They got Bam healthy. Kyle Lowry had some personal issues to deal with, but he's back now. I think this team is the best team in the East. And although I think the East is tougher than the West this year, which is rare, because I look at Miami's good, Milwaukee, defending champion, no slouch, Chicago, Cleveland, Philly, Toronto, Brooklyn, like those are all pretty good teams. I think it's gonna be tougher to get to the finals than it will in the West, because I think towards the bottom of the West it gets a little thin. But I think Miami has all the parts you need: a great coach, smart basketball players, they have experience, they added a champion in Kyle Lowry. I like their chances of going on a deep run.
Yeah, they've got guys on their bench too, Juggy, who, they only get 15, 20 minutes a game, but they're effective. And, they score 10, 12 points a night, but just that added depth is really taking the pressure off guys like Butler. Like Butler can do his thing, 15, 20 points, be effective defensively, which he seems to always do. Mm-hmm. And the scoring, without the pressure of having to score, really has made this team better. And, Bam is just a unit. It seems like every night he's just putting on a show statistically. He's a top 5 center in my opinion, but that's a podcast for another day, I think. And yeah, like you said, like they fully deserve to be there because of how well they've played down the stretch. And I would love them to see and make a small adjustment, maybe that one guy to kind of get them over the edge.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting if they do. They usually make a move. Pat Riley is usually proactive, so maybe it is a Kuzma.
I was gonna say Pete. They added PJ Tucker too, who's not he's got experience and he's got bite to his game, which never a bad thing really when you're talking about teams with scoring threats. You talked about the Kevin Durant's, the Embiid's. You get a guy like Tucker who's not going to do much offensively, but he's a bully when it comes to just locking down guys.
Yeah, and he's like a gnat. He's always in your face.
Bulldog.
He's a pit bull. That's for sure. I like him a lot as well. We're over an hour into this podcast. We haven't talked about the Lakers, which I take as a badge of honor. Because ESPN can't go 2 minutes. We're better than the mothership, and I'll just say that for us right now. But
sounds good.
Let's talk about them for a second here. Not 9th in the West, behind the Clippers.
Yeah. Who have no Kawhi.
Paul George hasn't played in a month, and they're behind the Clippers. This team, I think they're the second favorite to win the title at the start of the year, behind the Nets, we talked about their disaster so far. So both those, Vegas has really hit the nail on the head so far. Maybe they turned it around, but Westbrook benched again the other night. He's the turnover machine. He can't shoot. LeBron's still playing great, but he's with an old-ass team, and he's not a young guy either. Do you see the Lakers turning it around in a big way down the stretch? Are they just a middle-of-the-pack team that will fizzle out early in the postseason?
They're kind of like the new Batman movie, Juggy. They're just spewing with riddles because you just don't know what's going on. they've got all this talent and nothing to do with it. But no, I don't know. You'd think he gets LeBron, he'd be the one calling the shots, making the moves by now. But he hasn't done anything, and we're 2 days away from the deadline. Is he going to be pulling Kuzma back from Washington? Well, like what the hell is he going to do?
And what do you trade?
It may be that'd be something. LeBron goes to Golden State or something, pulls one out of his old black book.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's interesting. I don't see them doing any better. Obviously, I mean, I think at the most they could maybe catch a 7th, 6th seed if they start to play really well. But that's even seems like it could be a stretch because just how competitive the West is. I don't know. The problem is standing. Let's say you've already said his name, Russell Westbrook. You got to get that guy out of there. And I don't know. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, he makes 43 million this year, 47 next year. Nobody's taking that contract. No,
Yeah.
they're thinking about trading him for John Wall, who hasn't played this year. That's how bad it was getting in Lakerland. But I think if this team really wants to, you want to win. Westbrook, you say you wanted to come to LA to win, which I still don't buy. You want to come to be the center of attention. You're back, you're from your hometown. You want to be the spotlight. Okay, good for you. He needs to come off the bench, Shay, if you ask me. I think if he came off the bench, he was the leader of that shot. He could just drive to the rim. He could be the leader of that crew, of the mellow,
second unit.
Yeah, the second unit, have all kinds of energy. I think that's the best position he can be in. Do I think he'd accept that role? Hell no. But if he really wants to win, I think it's something Frank Vogel should really tell him, say, hey, we need you to do this. Because guess what, Frank Vogel? I don't think I need to say this. You know it. You flame out, it doesn't go well in the next couple weeks, at least by the end of this season, you're unemployed. You're going to be looking for another job. And I just don't see this team winning with Davis, LeBron, Westbrook. I mean, Davis, we know Anthony Davis will get hurt down the stretch again because it just happens every year. Yeah. But I feel bad for the guy because he's a great player. But like, you play the Knicks the other night and you win in overtime, and it's like you got the parade ready. I mean, you beat the sorry Knicks. You didn't beat Golden State. So I would experiment with him coming off the bench. I think that's the best way this team can win, but I doubt he accepts that assignment this late into the season.
Yeah, his ego would just kind of flame that out. I think it would almost take LeBron kind of go, talking to him, saying, hey, listen, like, we got to switch it up here because it's not working. And we got to give different guys opportunities, and you got to take a step down. But yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a great thought, but at the same time, you'd have to get everyone on board, which I just don't think you could do. Just a stat sheet stuffer. He's frustrating guy to play with, and I'm sure it's probably wearing on LeBron too, thinking, God, I had to try to get this guy here, and now I'm just made my team 10 times worse.
I'm sure Durant's sitting there saying, LeBron, you were so cocky that you said, okay, Durant can't win with this guy, but I can turn around, I can fix him. And now look, they are a complete disaster. I'm sure he's sitting there laughing a little bit, saying, I told you there, big boy. But maybe that's a 30 for 30 when their careers are over and we hear about the tales of Westbrook and Durant back in Oklahoma City. But trade deadline in 2 days, lots happening in the NBA, which is great to see. I expect to see some more moves. We'll see what happens with your Celtics. I think the Raptors will be open. Mentioned Utah. We'll see what some of these teams at the bottom end of the standings do as we move forward. Your Leafs get a big win last night, beat the Hurricanes. Good game. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought both teams are extremely good. How scared were you when you saw Austin Matthews run into a knee like Tavares did in the playoffs?
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of too. No, but I was a little worried. We'll see what the result is after he gets tested and hopefully cleared. But yeah, no, he'll be fine. He's a tough guy.
Really?
You're right though. Thoroughly good game. Nice to see Mitch Marner. A lot of garbage goals, but goals are still goals, and I think you'll agree.
Yeah, I scored my fair share of them. But yeah, they all count. Doesn't matter how they go in. But yeah, two really great teams. I thought Mrazek played well last night. I thought Freddie Anderson played very well.
Oh, he's phenomenal
For Carolina. I mean, he's having a great season. My guy Slavin didn't have his greatest game, which I'm disappointed in him. But I have to ask you, because you're a Leafs fan, and I poke fun at this player, and I like the guy. But that first goal, Jordan Staal looked like the big brother. It looked like you picking on Connor. He was like dragging him around, like on the wrestling mats, just tossing him around like a brag doll. And he hasn't exactly been great over the last month. It's been a good chunk of change here for Tavares, where he hasn't been playing that well. Are you a little worried about him as we move forward here?
Yeah, well, I would be less worried if we were paying him like a reasonable like 8 or 9 mil, but when you get up to those double digits, yeah, I don't know what's been up with him. It seems like Nylander's been kind of carrying that line for what seems like most of the season. Tavares just kind of gets his tip ins, gets his 5 foot in front of the net goals, but yeah, a little bit. I would say that it's been a slow progress. He looks slower, I find, than he has in the past, and yeah, just not as sharp. And some of his defensive things that he did really well when he was younger, those aspects of his game have kind of started to squander. So I'm not sure what's going to happen with him. Obviously, right now he's still a key piece to the team, but you're thinking about a few years from now, does he get even slower? Like, I mean, he's only 30, 31 right now, maybe not even. By 34, is he like kind of at HL speed? I don't know.
See Thomas Vanek.
Maybe. Yeah, nice hands though.
Yeah, good, real good finish at the net. But no, great show tonight. What do you have on the go? The rest busy week at work, or what's on the go for you?
Yeah, I'll be deep into the books, as they say, but no, it'll be fun. And shout out to my grandmother, turns 70 next week, so I'll have a little 70 birthday bash for her. But other than that, not a ton. Just keep plugging away. What about you, my friend?
Yeah, Super Bowl week. So as you know, it's exciting and also a very sad week for me.
Yeah.
It's
how are you holding up, knowing that's all coming to an end?
It's so bittersweet because it's the big game, but Sunday night about 11 o'clock, it's going to be just complete sadness because I'll be happy for whoever wins. Great content, Monday's show, which I always love. I root for content, not for teams. So I hope there's drama and full of content. But it's also like there's no football till July, preseason. There's no. It's tough. It's tough, but I'll get through it. I saw a good piece. I saw this today, and I'm really. I want this to happen. One of my favorites, Louis Riddick. He works for ESPN. He does Monday Night Football. And I think he's interviewed for jobs as a GM before, and I think he's extremely smart. I think he's one of the best ESPN has to offer. I think they'd miss him. He's interviewing for the Pittsburgh Steelers GM job today. And wow. I would love to see him get that job, him work with Mike Tomlin. They've talked about how they really respect one another. So I'm rooting. I'm hoping, I hope Louis Riddick can get this job. I think it would be great. I don't know how he hasn't gotten a job yet. It's kind of like Eric Bieniemy in Kansas City, but I hope Louis Riddick can get that general manager's job because I think he deserves it, and I think he's just a great football mind. So I'm going to wish him all the best.
Fresh new look on the black, gold and white. No, it'd be good to have some new blood in there. So we'll call it the post Ben, air going forward.
Yeah, I mean, if it's Louis Riddick, I doubt it'll be porn star Jimmy as the quarterback next year. He'll be somewhere.
Not a fan.
I don't think it'll be him if he's there. But you said next is your grandmother's party this coming weekend?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, well, tell her I said happy birthday. I haven't seen her in a little bit, but I'm sure she'll remember me from the apartment 49 days. So
yeah.
Is this Audrey or?
No, yeah. It's Audrey, not Karen.
Oh, I thought it was Karen. That's who you're talking about.
Audrey should know who you are.
Yeah, she might know me. She might want to forget me, but she'll probably still remember me. But no, great show tonight, man. I know it's late on the fly when it comes to basketball, but we had a good chat, and we'll do this again real soon.
Yeah, it's funny to compare and see what actually stirs up in these next couple of days. But one thing you can count on is Boston probably taking a couple more losses this year. But no, good talking to you, and take care.
Yeah, have a good one, everybody. Stay healthy. As always, this is To The Point.